Greetings. My name is Dr. Jonathan P. Jones. I teach in the program in educational theater at New York University's Steinhardt School of Culture, Education, and Human Development. I'm grateful to Zhijing Shi and her colleagues at the Shanghai Grand Theater and Seven Ages Investment Corporation who have invited me to speak with you today. Alice loved working with kids. There was no denying that fact. Alice's love for working with kids forced her to make a decision. She was going to have to leave the International Baccalaureate School, or IBS. Working as an assistant teacher in a general education classroom wasn't enough anymore. While she loved her experiences directing school shows like Alice in Wonderland and The Wizard of Oz, Alice was desperately frustrated with the school curriculum. Why in the world are we trying to get 4-year-olds to write? She frequently wondered. They should just be playing. But playing was not part of the curriculum at the IBS. Sure, she could get the students to play during rehearsal periods for the school plays, but that was only for a few weeks of the school year. What about the rest of the time? Math targets, reading above grade level, how is their penmanship? These were among the many dictates that she felt were imposed upon her classroom, and it was too much. It was too hard. Too hard for her, and unfair for the children. Alice was anxious to have a new beginning, any place but there. While in the midst of this anxiety, Alice found herself facilitating the final performance of Alice in Wonderland. The school principal pulled her aside after the performance, and he was beside himself. What do you have planned for next term? This was amazing. I've never seen the students so happy and so engaged. Alice couldn't help but laugh. Happy, engaged students were what she was looking for, and what she lacked in the classroom due to the rigid curriculum at the IBS. Funny you should mention next term because I'm actually looking for a position elsewhere. I appreciate all the ways that you've supported me during the last 2 years, but I just can't do this anymore. I need my own classes. I need my own curriculum. The principal was incredulous. But you can't leave. Not after this. Not after what you've just accomplished in this production. I mean, the students, the parents, what will I say? And just like that, opportunity came to the IBS. I need my own classes. I need my own curriculum, Alice repeated. Where this conversation would lead was unclear, but Alice remained steadfast. We don't have a classroom position available now, the principal replied, but I'll go to the board and I'll see what I can do. What the principal had in mind was beyond Alice's comprehension, but that was all right. She had made her decision, and she was seeking opportunity elsewhere. And in neglecting to imagine the opportunity right there at the IBS, she found herself in a state of shock when the principal informed her about what he had arranged. So, what do you think about teaching drama next year? Alice was confused and silent. I know we don't have a drama teacher now. I talked it over with the board and they were skeptical too, but I assured them that our students needed more access to arts instruction at the school. And given your success with the school plays these past 2 years, and, well, your dedication to the school, you are the only candidate I am willing to consider for the job. Putting the drama program into action was more complicated than Alice had imagined. The principal was so supportive of her abilities that he left her entirely on her own to put the program together, which was a blessing and a curse. The program was not on the timetable, and as there'd never been a drama program before, what was drama even going to look like at IBS? Alice wasn't quite sure, and the other faculty members certainly didn't know, and they were not supportive. What does she even do? Who does she think she is? Is she pulling a full-time salary? She expects me to give up class time for what? The faculty were not supportive indeed. They should be playing, Alice remembered. They should just be playing. And resolute as always, Alice would find a way. Who is Alice? In thinking about what I wanted to share with you today, Alice's story immediately came to mind. It's all too common for many teachers to limit their view of educational drama to product-based theater practices, like the school play that can be performed by young people for their peers and families in the wider school community. And while that experience is certainly meaningful in many ways, as it was for Alice, when taking into account the many ways that educational drama can contribute to growth, development, and overall learning experience for young people, there is more that can be accomplished through a more process-oriented approach to drama. In hearing my talk today, I want you to consider that same challenge. Do you want your students to perform on stage for an audience, or do you want something more? Educational drama can be broken into two categories: product-based educational drama and process-based educational drama. Product-based educational drama involves performance-based drama skills like acting, directing, playwriting, puppetry, mask, performance, and the like. In the narrative I just shared with you, Alice engaged in product-based drama when she directed her students in theatrical productions such as Alice in Wonderland and The Wizard of Oz. On the other hand, process-based educational drama incorporates those drama skills, but learning those skills and sharing a rehearsed production is not the main objective. The main objective of process-based educational drama is to use drama skills and strategies in order to craft drama experiences that will enhance learning of any subject matter. And I'm going to introduce some of those strategies to you today. While I will focus considerable attention today on introducing how to do drama, I want to first begin by talking about why to do drama. According to a 2010 research study, drama improves Lisbon Key Competencies in Education, or DICE. Researchers conducted a 2-year study in 11 European countries and Palestine, investigating the effects of educational drama on 5 key competencies. 1. Communication in the mother tongue. 2. Learning to learn. 3. Interpersonal, intercultural, and social competences, or civic competence. 4. Entrepreneurship. 5. Cultural expression. Of the thousands of participants who participated in 111 different educational drama programs, at the conclusion of the 2 years, the DICE study found that these students are assessed more highly by their teachers in all aspects, feel more confident in reading and understanding tasks, feel more confident in communication, are more likely to feel that they are creative, they like going to school more, enjoy school activities more, are better at problem solving, are better at coping with stress, are significantly more tolerant towards both minorities and foreigners, are more active citizens, show more interest in voting at any level, show more interest in participating in public issues, are more empathic, show that they have concern for others, are more able to change their perspective, are more innovative and entrepreneurial, show more dedication towards their future, and have more plans. Although treatment students in the DICE study were exposed to a range of dramatic encounters, most of the educational drama activities described in the study utilized similar methods. Dialogues in role, interviews in role, letter writing in role, improvisations, and self-created tableau or human sculptures directed by an outside individual. Strategies that are frequently used in classroom-based educational drama lessons. And I'm going to review some of those types of strategies in my talk later today. When students participate in product-based theater for family and community performances or for drama competitions, their experience with drama tends to be less frequent. Nonetheless, their outcomes are no less important. And while the DICE study focused on the impact of largely classroom-based educational drama, a 2011 lifelong impact study by Laura McCammon, Johnny Saldana, Angela Hines, and Matt Omasta sought to determine ways that participation in high school theater and speech classes and/or related extracurricular activities may have positively influenced and affected adults after graduation, and to identify, describe, and advocate the potentially beneficial and lifelong impacts that speech and theater participation during adolescence can contribute to adulthood. For the purposes of this study, theater classes were defined as those that focus on introductory and advanced studies of all aspects of actor training and theater production, such as verbal improvisation, movement, scene study, design, theater technology, history, directing, etc. And again, those are the drama skills that we often associate with product-based theater. From the respondents, the Lifelong Impact Study found that the high school drama teacher, has a significant impact on the adolescent experience. Through theater and speech and across time, students developed confidence, expressiveness, a sense of belonging, resilience, and self-identity. Young people established lifelong friendships and connections with others. They experienced performance epiphanies, developed a sense of accomplishment, found personal validation, and had a sense of being part of something bigger than themselves. Adolescents gained thinking and working skills, a sense of identity, and a sense of legacy. And students developed an expanded sense of socio-historical awareness. Though these enumerated outcomes are significant on their own, they barely scratch the surface when thinking about the gravity of what drama activity engenders in students, which is an opportunity to connect with their own innate creativity, a requisite asset for 21st century students. In my work in educational drama, I often look to Nellie McCaslin as a touchstone. McCaslin was a theater artist and educator who began writing about educational drama in the 1960s. She followed in the footsteps of another educator, practitioner, Professor Winifred Ward, who coined the term creative dramatics when theorizing about her work in schools in the 1920s and 30s. Ward documented the dramatic play in elementary education whereby students brought familiar stories to life as orchestrated by their classroom teacher. In McCaslin's work, she broadened the concept of creative dramatics to include a variety of dramatic play that children might engage in innately, or again, as orchestrated by their classroom teacher. These practices might include pantomime, puppetry, role-playing, or other informal dramatic encounters. By McCaslin's writing, creative dramatics harnesses the power of imagination, concentration, and organization in order to manifest creativity. McCaslin defines imagination as the magic force that goes beyond the mastery of facts and techniques in the search for new ideas. Most of us relinquish magical thinking during adolescence, but in order to embrace imagination, we must tap into that sense of wonder that we might have relished in our early years. Where would we be as writers, readers, scientists, mathematicians, engineers, or even artists if we weren't able to step away from what is known and allow our mind to wander? It is not enough to report or document. Those tasks are necessary and important, but so too is the art of invention. What if should be our guidepost, directing us away from what is known into the undefined, unformed, and unknown. And this is what we must encourage and inspire in our students. To bring the imagined to fruition takes concentration. According to McCaslin, quote, the capacity to hold an idea long enough to do something with it, close quote. Working in theater and performance, we often speak about focus, the need for an actor or performer to set aside the noise within, in order to attend as fully as possible to the work at hand. Think about your favorite novel or film, any meaty creative work with significant substance, and imagine, if you will, the breadth of that project. Each word, each character, setting, dialogue, conflict, each individual idea that adds up to the totality of that creative work. When I think of concentration as a concept, I imagine it spatially, that I will need to make physical space for that task, idea, or project to sit in. So when thinking about that novel or film, just imagine the mental space it takes up to generate each one of those details. And more than spatial, concentration is also temporal, that I will need to find time to nurture that idea, that task, that project, so it can grow. Think of the time and attention needed to generate that great work. And in that space and time, you'll also need to focus. You'll need to direct all of your creative energy towards that single task, idea, or project if you're going to bring it to fruition. This concentration goes hand in hand with organization, which is McCaslin's third component of creativity. Of organization, McCaslin notes that it, quote, does not mean imposing of a conventional form, but rather an arrangement of parts or materials to achieve order, close quote. Organization provides a structure that allows space, time, and focus from which endless possibilities can emerge. Now, this imagination, concentration, and organization manifest in creativity, which McCaslin describes as, quote, a new way of seeing, a different point of view, an original idea, or a new relationship between ideas, close quote. The possible. If I can imagine it, I can draw upon concentration and organization to create it, and engaging in drama activity allows young people an opportunity to exercise those skills. Now, what do we do with this information? If we know that engaging in drama activity has these outcomes as described here today, do we opt to have a product-based educational drama program that is limited in scope, available only to some of our students? Or do we invest in a larger process-oriented educational drama approach that allows students to engage in drama activity on a regular basis? Let's look more closely at how classroom drama education can be implemented in order to help us make up our mind. How to do drama. Alice's immigration unit was scheduled to begin in 3 days. She had been collaborating with the general education teachers for the previous week, trying to get the strategies for the lessons organized, but she lacked confidence in her planning abilities. The students had already learned about immigration in Ellis Island, which is the main port of entry for immigrants into the United States, in New York, near to the Statue of Liberty, through their classroom instruction with their regular teachers. Reading, for example, the book When Jessie Came Across the Sea by Amy Hest, the students were familiar with the topic of immigration and understood what it was like for an individual like Jessie to decide to leave their home and travel across the ocean to a new country. As such, Alice's work was cut out for her. She could use this prior knowledge as a springboard to get the students to bring a similar dramatic world to life. To begin with, Alice gave the students information about the town they were leaving behind. Old Town is a farming town. That's what everybody does there. But something had gone wrong. The crops had stopped growing. Let's imagine that we were the people in this town. Can you show me with your faces and bodies how you feel about the fact that the crops aren't growing? Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you angry? I want you to show me on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. With this simple, instant image activity, the process was in motion. More than planning and implementing a successful lesson, Alice was also concerned about her relationship with the classroom teachers. While she had gotten a feeling that some teachers weren't sure what to make of her position as the drama teacher, the teachers she was collaborating with on this Ellis Island unit seemed to be more open to working with her. And the unit was really their idea, it wasn't Alice's. And as Alice was open to making their idea come to life, these teachers were very interested in being a part of the action. They wanted Alice to work with the students for only an hour, but Alice pushed back. Well, I need at least 3, and 3 hours it was. I need more adults enrolled. I need the ticket taker for boarding the ship. I need a crew. I need a staff when we arrive at Ellis Island. I need a doctor to perform the health inspection. and the teachers were more than happy to comply. When they acted out different aspects of the immigration experience at Ellis Island, one teacher would act as the ticket taker, another would act as the arrival staff, and Alice herself would be captain on the ship. They even enlisted the school nurse to do the health inspections. I need newsboy caps and shawls. I want them to know that they are in role. And these costume items were procured so that the students and teachers would be able to wear these costume signifiers and make it evident that they were in these roles. Prior to the start of the lesson, the eager cooperating teachers circulated a flyer in their classrooms about a meeting the following day. A meeting to discuss a ship that would be setting sail for America. Some students were eager to learn more, while others were unsure. The letter was dated October 1913. At the time, it was exactly 100 years in the past. The classes were evenly divided about who wanted to go to the meeting and those who were unsure. However, no one wanted to be left out, so they put on their caps and their shawls, and they made their way to the meeting. The students were divided into groups of 4 or 5. This is your family, Alice told them. You must decide what your relationship is. Is there a mother? Is there a father? Grandma? Who will you be in this family? The students were eager to comply. There was a meeting to get to, after all. And as they eventually made their way to the meeting, Alice allowed the students opportunities to rehearse what would come later. While we're walking, I want you to think about what you can do with your face and your body, but not your voice. I want you to show me some things. Show me that you're happy. Show me that you're scared. Show me that you're sad. The students were creative and engaged, and so they were ready. Now we've arrived at our meeting. Remember who your character is. Are you mom? Are you dad? A son? A daughter? Show me how you feel now that you've arrived at the meeting. In 3, 2, 1. And there they were. Every student enrolled at the meeting. Some were excited, some were curious, and others were afraid. But everyone was fully present with a facial expression that signified their characters' feelings as they were about to start the meeting. Now that we've heard an introduction to Alice's educational drama unit plan, let's walk through the unit step by step to discover how she organized the strategies in her unit according to episodes. Episode 1, Creating Families. For our first episode, the students were tasked with creating families in order to build context and establish the world of the drama. To establish characters and families, Alice used a strategy called Roll on the Wall. In Roll on the Wall, the outline of a figure is drawn on a sheet of paper. Inside the figure, the student writes words or phrases to describe the character. Then, in the space around the form, the student writes words or phrases to describe the world around the character. In Alice's unit, the teacher posted an outline of a person on the wall and asked the students to quickly discuss with a partner some words or phrases to describe someone who might want to be an immigrant. To get the conversation going, Alice gave a few examples. Someone who might want to be an immigrant might be adventurous. They might be hopeful. They might be afraid. What other words or phrases might describe that kind of person? The pairs were given a little time to discuss some ideas, and then Alice asked volunteers to share some of the words and phrases they talked about, and she wrote them inside the form. Now the teacher asked the students to think about what might be happening in the person's life that might make them decide to leave their country or move somewhere else. The students discussed these ideas with their partner, and again, Alice asked volunteers to share some of the words and phrases, and then she wrote those on the roll on the wall in the space surrounding the form. Though this strategy is a good start for building context, we haven't yet achieved the goal of the episode, which was to create families. So at this point, the students thought about someone who might be an immigrant, but they hadn't created specific characters nor a family, which was their objective. So they needed something more. Alice divided the class into groups of 4 or 5 students, and once they were in those groups, she told them that they were going to be a family, as I mentioned before. They needed to decide who they were in the family. Is there a mother, father, grandma, as I described? And once they decided who they were in the family, they posed for a family portrait. And this is a strategy called tableau. Tableau is simply a frozen picture using the body, focusing on physical gesture, placement in the space, distance between the characters, and facial expression, all to convey a part of the story. We want to be able to look at this portrait and know from the picture who they are and what their relationship is. If they're mom and dad, how will we know? If they're a son or a daughter, how will we know? What can they do when they pose for their portrait to show us who they are? The groups were given some brief time to plan their tableau, and once they were ready, the groups showed their tableau one at a time. Now, tableau is an effective tool for building context, but it can also be used for narrative action. So that is, it can be used as part of telling the story, where it can show a particular moment that may be important to the unfolding narrative. Now that the characters were established, we were one step closer to achieving our objective. But they must also decide whether they think their character will want to emigrate or not. Here, Alice employs a strategy called cross the circle. In this activity, the students will stand in a circle and the teacher will make a number of statements. If the statement applies to the character that the students have created, then that student will cross the circle. In Alice's immigration lesson, she said statements like this: cross the circle if you are a parent. Cross the circle if you are a son or daughter. Cross the circle if you love your family. Cross the circle if you are happy with your life at home. Cross the circle if you think leaving this country is a good idea. Once the students had this experience, they've established more specific ideas about their individual characters within these families. So we can say that we've built belief through context building, we've established the families, and we've illustrated their relationships through the tableau, but we've also identified a point of view for the drama for those who want to emigrate and those who do not. And at this point, we've achieved our objective for the first episode, so we're ready to go on to episode 2, the initial meeting. Episode 2, the initial meeting. Before Alice began the meeting, she wanted to explore some traditional drama skills that she felt her students needed some time to develop. She asked her students to do an activity called a spacewalk. This strategy was popularized by Viola Spolin. She was a famous director and acting teacher, and she created a number of games largely used in rehearsal for educational drama. So this is a rehearsal technique, the spacewalk, that allows actors to explore the physical movement of their character and how that is different from their own movement. Okay, how does this character move versus how do I move? So Alice asked her students to silently walk around the space as themselves. And while they walked, she asked them to think about what they could do with their faces and their bodies, but not their voices, to show a few things. She asked them to think about a character who was happy. So then she told them to keep walking and show with their face and their body what a happy character would look like. When the students had been walking for a while, she then had them return to a neutral state, and then she asked them to think about a character that was sad. Show me with your face and your body as you're walking a character who is sad. Then they went back to neutral. Show me a character who might be afraid, etc. So that's how you do a spacewalk. And this activity prepared the students to think about how they used their faces and their bodies to help tell the story that they were creating together. Now that the students had time to think about and practice showing emotions and the state of mind of their character with their faces and their bodies, They were ready to act in the meeting and begin the narrative action of the lesson, which is telling the story. So in the meeting, the students were in role as their characters from the family, and the teacher was in role as a member of their community who was also thinking about making this voyage, though she hadn't yet made up her mind. And this is a strategy called teacher in role. So it's important for the teacher to take a role that is close in status to the students' roles. The teacher should be high enough in status to maintain control of the meeting and manage the class, but low enough to encourage the students to fully engage with their characters. In the meeting, the teacher in role posed a number of questions to get the students in role to describe what their characters' positions are on whether or not they should emigrate. Questions the teacher asked included, have you decided to go? What made you decide to go? What are you expecting to happen on the journey? What are your hopes for life in America? Have you decided to stay behind? Why don't you want to go? These kinds of questions. And this approach allowed the teacher in role to manage the discussion and provided the students with an opportunity to articulate the point of view of their character and hear from others. Further, as the previous activity reviewed using facial expressions to show emotions and state of mind, the teacher also reminds the students to employ those skills during the meeting as well. However they think their character is feeling at any time during the meeting should be evident by the expression on their face. And if the students are not immediately ready to join in the discussion, the teacher in role might ask the students to talk to the people sitting next to them first, and then share some of what they had discussed. The meeting ends when most of the students have had an opportunity to share. Following the meeting, it was time for reflective action. So this is where we look back on the work we've just completed and try to process it and make sense of it. So during this time, Alice was out of role, and she led a brief discussion about what the students heard in the meeting and what they thought these characters might decide to do. So the strategy that Alice used here is called pause and reflect. Now, this strategy is a brief reflective discussion about some aspect of the drama that has just occurred. Thereafter, the next strategy that Alice used is one called taking a stand. Based on what they know about their characters from the decisions they have made and the discussions the class has had, the students must make a decision about whether or not their character will emigrate. Those who will go should stand on one side of the room, so they're over there, and those who will not go, they'll stand on the other side. And as this is also a reflective activity, the teacher can ask volunteers from each side to explain their position. Now, as the objective of our second episode is complete, we wanted to have an initial meeting with those who wanted to emigrate and those who did not. And the students were now ready to go on to the third episode. Now, that episode is going to enact a scene of departure, what it looks like when they're about to embark on this voyage. Now, I would go through each episode of the lesson as I have done so far, but we'd be here all day. So instead, let's review the strategies that we've heard about so far, and then allow me to highlight a few more strategies that Alice used in the subsequent episodes so that you get a sense of the overall scope of where this is going. So episode 1 and 2 review. To build belief and establish the context, we started with the following strategies. We had roll on the wall, tableau, and cross the circle. This sequence of context-building actions allowed us to identify the theme or learning area for the students. They were able to establish the context for the lesson, identify roles for the students, and establish the point of view that their character would take for the initial part of the drama. In order to prepare for the narrative action, Alice led the students through a brief spacewalk activity so they could practice using facial expression and physicality. Then we launched into the narrative action, so the storytelling of the lesson during the meeting with teacher in role. This culminated in reflective action with pause and reflect, followed by taking a stand. Some additional strategies that Alice used in her lesson that are worth taking note of are additional tableau during the narrative action, so telling the story through pictures. Generally, when we use tableau in narrative action, we follow that with a strategy called image reading. In image reading, the students look at the tableau and share words or phrases to describe what they see in the image. What are the relationships? What is the action? What story does this image tell? Besides image reading, we also often follow tableau with a strategy called thought tracking. In thought tracking, the teacher moves around and taps the shoulder of individuals in the tableau to hear what their character is thinking or feeling in that moment. Alice employed this strategy when the immigrants first saw the Statue of Liberty. She asked the students to freeze where they were and show with their faces and bodies what their character was feeling at that moment. She then moved among them and tapped them on the shoulder to hear words, phrases, or brief sentences that told what they were thinking or feeling. One student said, "I'm so excited to be off the ship." Another student said, "I'm scared. I don't know if I'll be able to find work." So that's the idea. Within the narrative action, Alice employed a strategy called structured improvisation. In this strategy, the teacher describes a specific moment she would like to bring to life through role play, and then asks the students, whether in a small group or possibly the whole class, to bring that moment to life. So in her lessons, Alice used this a few times. Among them were when the immigrants were boarding the ship. They had to get their boarding passes and line up to board the ship. While they were on the ship, she hosted a dance where she played recorded music, and she used teacher and role to teach them a dance that they could all do together. Another time, when the passengers arrived at Ellis Island, she had the students act out the process of disembarking from the ship, directing the passengers to a medical inspection, and then they were able to play all of that out, So that is what we do with structured improvisation. Another strategy that Alice employed is called sacred objects. In this strategy, the students are in role and they draw an image of an object that is very important to their character that they will bring on their journey. Creating the sacred objects helps to build and deepen context through poetic action, because this is an artistic process. So the students can then use those in structured improvisation. Alice used these sacred objects aboard the ship when she set the scene late at night, where the passengers sat around and each took a turn telling a brief story about their sacred object. Now, if the class had been too large, or the students weren't attentive enough to listen to each student tell a story, you could use a simpler strategy for structured improvisation. One of them is called overheard conversations. And in this strategy, students are in pairs, and they talk in role about a specific topic. So in this case, they would be talking about their sacred objects. We say that the conversations are overheard because you might ask some of the pairs to share a brief moment from their conversation with the rest of the class, so that we can overhear what that pair is talking about. A final strategy for narrative action that I always like to use is called letter writing, or writing in role. And remember, I mentioned that that was one of the strategies they used during the DICE study. In this strategy, you ask the students in role to write as their character about a specific topic. For example, the students in role could write goodbye letters to a friend before they board the ship, or they could write letters while aboard the ship to a member of family that they left behind. As the letters are written in role, we generally ask the students to do this activity at a moment that makes sense within the narrative. So when does it seem like these characters could be writing or should be writing, and so that's where we employ it within the narrative. To employ this, or to follow this up with reflective action, I employ a strategy called analysis and reduction. Now in this strategy, I would ask the students to exchange the paper, so exchange their letters with a partner. They will read the letter silently and analyze the writing for a key word or phrase that they think is the heart of that letter, the most important facet. reducing the writing to indeed what seems most important. And these keywords or phrases can then be shared, or they could be used as the basis to create a tableau or some other strategy that we decide we're going to use. In the final reflective action of her lesson, Alice asked her students to consider the experience that they had from the beginning to the end. And so they conveyed their feelings using a strategy called I was, I am, I will be. And in this strategy, it allows the students to demonstrate the predictions for the fate of their character. When we do this, the students are given a slip of paper with those 3 writing prompts on them. I was, I am, I will be. And they complete those prompts based on how their character would respond. So when the students were finished completing the prompts, the teacher asks them to identify only one of their responses to share with the class. And then for a poetic closure to the activities, the students each take a turn, go around, and they each share their response to either I am, I was, or I will be. And it almost comes together like a poem. So Alice was enrolled as the immigration official, and her final act was to stamp the passports for the new immigrants. And in that stamp it said, "Welcome to the United States." Now, if we were to chart out this whole unit structure, it would look like this. Now, I know you're looking at this all together, and you might be asking yourself, how could I possibly do this? Well, here's some advice. If your students are not yet accustomed to doing this type of drama work, you should think about starting small, implementing a strategy here or there, just in your normal course of planning, in order to get a sense of the degree to which your students are willing to engage with these types of drama activities, as well as familiarizing yourself with how to give articulate instructions in order to facilitate these particular strategies. And you'll need to trust that every opportunity you provide to involve creativity is a step towards achieving the outcomes that I described at the outset of this talk. As I draw this talk to a close, I again pose the question, should you choose product-based drama education or process-based drama education? Well, I encourage you to try to do both. Product-based drama draws attention to your program. It allows your students to demonstrate their talents to their families, to the community, to the administration at the school. And if you're interested in competitions and you want to know how best to succeed, well, go to a competition before you decide to enter one. If you can, bring your students. So that way, you and the students, you can see the kinds of performances that succeed. We can succeed if we know what we're working towards. Now, I know that there's a lot of concern about what material to choose, what are the best plays for young people. And in my opinion, the best plays for young people are plays that they create themselves. Yeah. If you want to know how to do that, I'm going to need a lot more time with you to talk about creating plays with young people. And even now, I'm actually writing a chapter about it for a book. But the important thing is to trust the form. Any script, as long as it provides enough roles for as many students as you want to showcase, it's going to be fine. But if you want to promote creativity and provide opportunities for sustained and equitable growth for all of your students, you'll want to find ways to implement drama education on a regular basis. When I was preparing to start teaching English literature, I had a meeting with a mentor in drama education, a man by the name of Gavin Bolton. I asked him how I should approach using drama education strategies in my English classroom. And he told me, start small. If you're teaching the Shakespeare play Romeo and Juliet, and you're reading the scene where Juliet is about to drink the poison and fake her own death, Ask the students to think about what Juliet must be thinking at that moment. When she fakes her death, she's going to leave her family behind and run away with Romeo, and she's never going to see her family again. Now, in the play, up to that time, the character she's been closest to is called the nurse. Juliet can't tell the nurse the plan, or else it might get found out. She might tell her parents. So if Juliet is going to say goodbye to the nurse, it has to be goodbye forever. What will she write in that goodbye letter to the nurse? Have the students write that letter. And if they're comfortable with writing in role, well, then you can ask them to do more. And bit by bit, you'll use more of the strategies until the students are ready to do a full sequence of educational drama. And then you'll be ready to plan and facilitate it. But until then, start small. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your conference.